what they were actually talking about was this stuff that is in the new biology now, is the fact, yes, the first 6 years is programming from the outside by other people. Mm-hmm. And that this becomes the fundamental, when we run our lives, these are the fundamental programs that are operating 95% of the time. So whatever we downloaded, we become.
Well, Bruce, where do we download? Do we also download from the etheric or from the soul journey or from spirit?
Well, when we become conscious, we start to do that. In the first 6 years, it's really just putting basic understandings about life, language, communication, skills, everything we need to be part of a world. We have to learn it from the community. So evolution evolved the brain to take those 6 years and do that as a download, so you become part of the community and not just like a pinball that's bouncing all over the place. No, you become programmed to become part of the community by observing everyone around you for the first 6 years. And this is where the matrix comes in. And it basically says this: if I can program you to disempower you for the first 6 years, then the rest of your life you're disempowered. And if I also then tell you what I think the way life should be, and you buy that as your program, then you will manifest, because remember, we're creating our own individual lives. And spontaneous evolution brings out the fact again that as individuals, personally, individually, we have very negligible effect on the unfolding of the world as it is. But as we become part of a culture, part of a mass group, and we share common beliefs, then that negligible effect as an individual turns out to be a profoundly powerful effect when exercised by larger numbers. So that a culture that says we live in a Darwinian world that's based on a struggle for survival, well, that's a belief system. And guess what? We manifest it, and then we look around and say, yep, that's because we live in a Darwinian world. It's like, no, you created this. Because it's not a Darwinian world. It's a belief system that has taken us off. And
but Bruce, you can change the belief structures that were...
Of course, that's what the evolution is all about, because if you don't change the belief structure, then you will manifest the programming that you've been programmed with already, which is the world as it is right now, that is driving us to the edge of this thing. And if you don't change that, then you will follow that line and go toward the end that way. The way out, as I said, was a participatory evolution. The first thing is to recognize, wait a minute, I am more powerful than anyone has ever let on to me, and I need to get my power back. And the fact is, well, that's why understanding how you lost your power is relevant to the story of, like, the Matrix. We lost it because we got programmed by others about how life should be, and then we manifest life, and then we say, yeah, that's just as we expected. It's like, no, that's what you created. And so if we change our perceptions, change the way we respond to life, and that's pulling out of the Matrix. That means as they try to push your buttons, you know that old saying, that guy pushed my buttons and then, like, my behavior ran away. Programming, you're not. You're playing out somebody else's program. That's whoever programs you. And so what we need to do is recover this power and create this world. And it's interesting. Truth, every one of us is creating the world that we live in, and collectively we're creating the world that we all see. And then people would say, but Bruce, I would never have created this. I wouldn't have done this to my own life. And I go, yeah, I know, but the problem is your conscious mind is your creative mind, and your subconscious mind, the one that gets programmed, is the mind that actually runs the show 95% of the time. So it basically says about 5% of the time you're operating consciously and going in the direction that you want out of your life. And 95% of the time, you are unconsciously playing programs that you were downloaded with before you were 5 or 6, and manifesting that, and you don't see it, and therefore the big catch. I didn't create this life. Why? Because I wouldn't have done this. And the fact is, not consciously, but unconsciously or subconsciously, you were actually participating in all this because you were playing out programs that you got as a child. And almost all of these are very limiting. When I teach down in New Zealand and Australia, I love it. They have a phrase called cutting the tall poppies, referring to child rearing.
Oh.
And what they mean by that is a gardener plants these poppies, and all the poppies come up to about the same height, and then every now and then one poppy has its head about 2 feet above all the other poppies. So what does the gardener do? Cuts the head puppies because he wants them all the same height, right?
Right.
When they talk about that in child rearing, which is the same that happens here, but they have a name for it there, what they're talking about is when a child starts to show an exceptional ability, the general tendency of the community or population is to cut the head off and make them everybody average.
Cut them down to size.
Exactly. And so we've all been cut down to size when we all have heads, feet above where we are right now.
Well, so when you, Bruce, I don't mean to change the subject. I want to get back to something before you go too far. When you were unfolding this awareness, like what happened to wake you up to it? What are the components of waking up? And
well,
how have you done
the first wake up was fighting myself with my own foot in my mouth. And it basically went like this. I saw the scientific aspect of the nature of how the environmental signals program our behaviors. Mm-hmm. And therefore we represent a reflection of the experiences of our environment. And when I understood this, I got so excited because I wanted to tell everybody. I said, anytime I could grab enough people to put them together, I said, listen, I got to tell you about this new science. You know why? Because if you understand this new science, you can create a healthy, happy, wonderful life on this planet if you understand the nature of this. Mm-hmm. And I'd give my lecture, and about halfway through, I could see most of the people in the audience, their heads would be cocked a little bit, and they go, Lipton, for a guy who says you know this stuff, your life doesn't look that good. and it was like, and I almost heard myself say, I didn't say it exactly, but I might as well because I said something that meant the same thing. We thought, well, don't do as I do as I say. And that's when I got caught. And I got caught and I realized, and the big thing that we all have to realize, conscious awareness does not change subconscious programming.
Okay.
And the significance about that is you could go to a psychiatrist and rework your whole life and come out and say, God, now I know my mom did this, my dad, my friends, I see why my life is all messed up. And then I say, great, at this moment you have a complete awareness of why your life was messed up. And guess what? Your life is still messed up. It doesn't change. And that's the problem. Even when you find out what was the cause, it doesn't change. Or, more importantly for the audience, you read a self-help book. Consciously, it makes all the sense in the world. It says, wow, that's really great. But your life didn't change. And the reason is why? Because conscious awareness only runs the show 5% of the time. The subconscious is the one that runs the show 95% of the time, and the primary programs were downloaded from other people. And we don't see these behaviors when we do them. Now that's the catchy part. So the audience should be familiar with this. I'd say it in the lecture, and it goes like this. I'd say, you know a friend, a close friend, and you happen to know your friend's parents. And at some point, you see that your friend shares many of the behaviors of their parents. And then you volunteer, right? Yeah. You volunteer, and you go, Bill, you're just like your dad. And then you
Bill
back
flips
away.
Out, yeah.
You back away as he vents, like, how can you make that comparison? So obviously,
you
you're
were
familiar
my friend.
with that. But here's the point. We're all Bill. And why is that important? Because what's the story with Bill? Everybody else can see he was playing the program that he got from his parents, but he was the only one who didn't see it. And why? Because it's called subconscious. When you play it, you don't see it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to tell everyone out there, because I was involved with this up to my own neck, and the reality is we are operating so much of our lives with invisible programs that are, in the raising of the tall poppy nature, limiting, disempowering, and self-sabotaging that we acquired in our development. We do not see these programs, but we walk forward with the belief that, my conscious mind wants to create a great relationship and have health and a great job. And I'm thinking, that's a great creation of the conscious mind, great wishes, desires, aspirations, conscious mind. I say, that's really cool, but then you're only operating less than 5% of the time from that mind. You're operating 95% to 99% from the habit programs of the subconscious mind. And again, most of them we weren't even conscious of them when they were even downloaded. Many of them were downloaded even before we were born. Mm-hmm. So
cellular, isn't it? Cellular.
What's that?
It's a lot of it's cellular, isn't it?
Well, it's actually no. It's emotional chemicals and body regulatory hormones that you learn from repetitive experiences. And when you're a fetus, what we always talk about is what's the role of the mother in a fetus? Well, she provides the nourishment, the blood goes to the placenta, and then the nourishment is transferred from the mother's side over to the fetus side. And we say, oh yeah, the role of a good mother, she eats well and takes vitamins and supplements and exercise. And we say, oh, she's a great mother. And then it turns out, wait a minute, there's more to blood than nutrition. All of the regulatory and emotional chemicals are in the blood. So if the mother is going through an emotional experience, the chemistry crosses through the placenta, and the fetus, unaware of the details, still has the emotion of anger or happiness or rejection or whatever the mother is feeling. The child will have the exact same feeling. If the mother repeats on a pattern, the child learns the pattern, and when it's born, will have a pattern of behavior without even knowing the words or the interactions involved.